Cover this one because the guy on Newsmax says something startlingly ignorant, surprisingly ignorant. All right. Now, Krista always uses clickbaity titles, so I don't know if we're actually going to see Trump sobbing, but because I haven't gotten to the end yet. But I do want to like cover the. I definitely want to cover some aspects of this because I have been covering the non-event that did not happen, as far as I know, in Laguna Hills. That was supposed to be just a couple miles from me.
So, folks, my goodness, one thing we know is that we are hours away from the big moment where old Donnie is finally arrested. And what's very clear is that his threats, at least as of yet, have not worked. Whether they're aimed at the general public safety, whether they're aimed at witnesses, whether they're aimed at law and order, it isn't working. And people are onto his BS. People are on to all of the tricks, and all he has left is to sob, because he posted a video sobbing and whining and complaining about the fact that he is getting handcuffed in a matter of hours, and he can't handle that. Meanwhile, as I've noted, it's just an embarrassing moment for him, and he is taking an absolute tumble. And as we've explored, the mental and physical injuries of this man as he takes absolute crashing collapses is so evident as well in these recordings. But I want to start with just people on to the BS, guys, because we need to understand that the reason Trump is desperate is because what used to work ain't working anymore.
Yeah, so basically the only thing I heard happened yesterday was that there was maybe 10 or less protesters in front of the courthouse. That the estimate was that there was a lot more media there than there were protesters, and that the ratio was 5 to 1. There were apparently a handful of protesters in front of Trump Tower. There were some protesters, another handful of protesters at Mar-a-Lago. And the only other location I heard about was Laguna Hills. Fuck even. Laguna Hills, which I don't think materialized at all. And that was the one that Roger Stone was promoting. And if you search for it, which I did this morning, and I did last night when I heard about it, I can't find any pictures or video or anything about this thing. It is a very popular intersection to do protesting at, but we have a huge storm going through the area today. There's a flood watch through tomorrow. That's a low-lying area. It's very windy. I've had to take part of my tarp down. I've said this in my last video. And the particular intersection, which might have been good for us when we protested there like 5 years ago, is now next to a freeway that's under massive construction. And so people avoid the area as people avoid the area as it is. It's also the parking lot where the In-N-Out is in a ghost mall that's under development. So the majority of businesses in that area have shuttered until they redevelop this mall into an outdoor mall. So it's hilarious that Roger Stone was promoting that like it was going to be something. I mean, hang on a second. Here's the tweet about the one in my neighborhood. I mean, oh my God, Roger Stone, I can't even. That's so hilarious that you tried to do this. If you are in Orange County or Southern California, anywhere in Southern California, okay, Roger, like seriously, do you realize how large Southern California is? It's the size of some entire states. It's the size of some entire states. So you want people to drive in from like 2 hours away in any direction or something, or maybe even further. I know we've had people come in from Arizona, get bussed in from Arizona to mess with our city council meetings. Here is the lowdown. Keep it peaceful. Laguna Hills. Hail to the chief. Let me see what this says. Hail to the chief. Trump loyalty rally with 3 L's. When it is Tuesday. It's supposed to be. I didn't see the, because this wasn't brought to my attention until like 11:30 last night. So it's supposed to be 4 to 6. Okay. It's going to be raining, you guys. It's going to be raining. I'm not going anywhere near it. So, okay. We'll see if anybody posts any pictures from this bullshit. We're in and out off 5 South and El Toro. 2401 Avenida de la Carlota, Laguna Hills, California 92653. Hands off our president. Fight for Trump. Wow. Okay. Keep it peaceful, but fight for Trump. All right. I'll tell you, the majority of the comments, the replies to this tweet are people laughing at the idea that anybody's going to show up to this thing, because it is pouring outside and it's very windy. And what are you going to do? Stand out there in a parka with a cardboard sign and have it disintegrate in your hands? Like that, this is silly. All right, let's go back to the video.
Here's just a great rundown about how Trump really isn't that special.
It does not bend the Constitution, let alone break it, to indict criminals for crimes, even when the alleged criminal is someone who has been elected to a very important job. It is run-of-the-mill public corruption law enforcement in this country, and we do it all the time. And there is no reason why a former president should be magically immune from the same legal system that just in the past 3 years has put handcuffs on at least 13 state senators, 17 state representatives, 1 serving congressman, 1 former congressman, the Delaware state auditor, the North Carolina Republican Party chair, the insurance commissioner of Georgia, and too many city councilors, aldermen, county executives, and mayors to count.
Yeah, it's usually like FEC violations. Usually, this is not uncommon at all. And I believe that they are trying to make a case that the hush money payment is an FEC violation. So this is super common. So I don't know why y'all are freaking out.
It happens all the time. It really does not have to be the end of the world. And anybody telling you that if there is an indictment of this particular former public official, there will be a protest like you've never seen before. There will be civil war. There will be an unstoppable uprising among his supporters and violence and all the rest. Anybody telling you that that is the consequence of him being potentially indicted, well, that person may be wishing for that, but there's no reason that something like that is inevitable. This is not something coming up that is extraneous to our system that we need to invent something new to contend with. The bottom line here is that prosecuting public officials and former public officials, it happens all the time in the United States of America. Yeah. And it never engenders violence. And it never endangers the country. And it doesn't require our legal system to be fundamentally rethought or dismantled.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to be a crazed zealot to answer a call of violence from Donald Trump simply because he doesn't want to be accountable for the laws he's broken. When all of these other politicians and public officials and have also had to face the consequences of their mistakes. That's life. Is that what you want to teach your kids? That you can, commit crimes and then just get your gang of friends to beat up the cops? Is that what you want to, is that what you want to teach your kids?
Unless someone wants to try to gin that up. And that is what we are contending with now with this particular former public official.
So what that says, as we get ready to show you this video of Trump, is that public officials get arrested at least semi-frequently in the United States. And yes, a president is unusual.
Where's the timpanist?
But there's no functional difference between a loser ex-president and any of these other officials, right? Officials get arrested at the state, the local, the county, the national level all the time. And it's never, ever, ever, ever led to mass violence and mass protest and things like that. Never. Sometimes the people get away with it. Sometimes they're acquitted. Sometimes because they're rich and wealthy and well-connected, they have the best lawyers and they get away with crimes. That does happen. But it's never been the case, like what Donald Trump is trying to foment, that there's been a massive carnage just because a loser ex-president or a mayor or a congressperson or a state assembly person or a state senator or a governor or whatever, whether former or current, gets arrested. It's never led to this mass protest, at least not in a modern American.
He's going to get to the counter protests here in a second. And I have a lot of thoughts on how stupid the guy on Newsmax is.
Sense, at least not since like World War II or whatever, things like that. And it's not going to now, and we've seen some evidence of that. We saw yesterday when Trump tried to, and I talked about this, tried to organize the protests, and like 10 people showed up to one, 5 people to another. What's really interesting, just a quick clip here before we get into how Michael Cohen is saying that Donald Trump's BS isn't working and he's scared, before we get into the Trump video, is that there was a bigger protest countering Trump today in front of his property.
Interestingly enough, we bring you this live shot here. We know the former president has called for protests in a peaceful manner. Many Republicans push back on that, but interestingly enough, it's the opposite side that's outside protesting now, saying insurrection, TikTok, time's up, no one is above the law, Trump is guilty. Again, many supporting the possible indictment of former President Trump there.
Yeah, those signs really look like they were made by the grassroots groups too, don't they, Sean?
Yeah, we'll continue to...
Okay, clown. Who the hell do you think shows up to protests? It's going to be unions. It's going to be Democratic clubs. It's going to be Our Revolution groups, PDA groups, the DSA. All of these groups run on Robert's rules, for the most part. They have elected leadership, and they have treasurers. They take donations into their organizations, and those donations are specifically used to get banners and signs for protests and to do other efforts in their community. They work with union shops and get union bugs on all of their materials. And you're like, oh, yes, oh, I'm sorry. You know how to organize? You know how to save enough money to actually buy a banner? You guys are such clowns.
follow that. Again, barricades have been put up in...
So that's Newsmax, forced to admit the truth, that while Trump was the one calling for protest and resistance to his arrest by the New York DA and by other officials potentially in the coming weeks and months in Georgia and Washington and in other places, there were more people protesting, demanding Trump be held to account than protesting he not be held to account last night. There were bigger anti-Trump protests than pro-Trump protests, and there's been no organized call from Democrats, for example, to protest against Trump. You've seen Trump himself call for mass protest and it not work. You haven't seen Biden or any top Democrats say, we need to protest in the streets to ensure Trump gets arrested. You haven't seen that, and yet there were bigger crowds. And here's what Cohen is noting, that for all of the bluster from Trump and his team, what it shows is that he is taking a rapid tumble down the stairs towards prison, but also, guys, he is terrified.
Out. And the lie to Congress on the 1001 violation, I pled guilty, was the number of times that I spoke to Donald Trump about the failed real estate project at the direction of, for the benefit of, and in coordination with Donald Trump. I said 3. And the real answer was 10. And if you think that that's going to stop Alvin Bragg or anybody from using me on credibility, it's not. All right. And there's so many things that will not only will come up, but have already dripped out regarding credibility, testified before 7 congressional committees, the Attorney General, District Attorney, Mueller. Not one person has turned around so far and said that anything that I told them has not been accurate and truthful and relevant to their
And what I haven't asked you about yet, when you see Donald Trump on Saturday try to announce his own arrest, what do you see him doing there?
This is really panic and fear. He knows what's coming on Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever. He knows what's coming down the pike. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to get the advanced jump onto the story. We did the exact same thing at the Trump University case with Schneiderman, where we found out that he was filing, and before he filed, we jumped onto it. It's a typical Trump play.
Yeah. Nick?
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I mean, the fact that Michael might have lied before.
I saw Donald Trump speak at the Anaheim Pond in, I think it was either 99 or 2000. He was speaking at a Tony Robbins convention, and pretty much every cycle, he would always say that he was running for president, but he didn't seriously go for it until 2016. But every cycle, he would say he was running for president because he always had some sort of media venture he wanted to promote. And that was, I think, right before he started The Apprentice with Mark Burnett, right? But at the time, there were several motivational speakers at that event, and he was the only one that the media came for. They were up in the front filming him and taking pictures and stuff like that. But his story was so ridiculous. He talked about having to file for bankruptcy a couple of times, and that he was worth less than a homeless person on the street because he was $2 million in debt. I just don't see how anybody could ever look at that man as a good investment, a good leader, or even a decent person. Because anybody who ever watched The Apprentice, which I did used to watch it because I like the case study aspect of it, but the boardroom scenes were just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And the nepotism aspect of it was weird. Felt very strange. But okay, I digress.
Beforehand is really irrelevant to whether he's telling the truth now. I mean, when you go to the jury, the prosecutor's going to say, look, we're not presenting Michael Cohen as a choir boy. Sure, he lied before, but he lied for this defendant who's sitting in the dock. And if you look at the other evidence, if you look at the documents, if you take into account the other testimony, you're going to conclude that Michael Cohen is telling the truth. And the key is the corroboration and the support that they have that what Michael is saying is absolutely spot on.
And if you cancel out whatever the former president posted, based on what we know, that the grand jury was still taking witness testimony as of this afternoon, if they were to move forward on an indictment, what is the timeline for that?
Oh, I still think it could be in a couple days. I don't think it's, going to be too far off.
You have any view on that?
I do, but I'm going to keep it to myself.
Understood.
He knows what's
Well, yeah, the thing is, too, that in dialogue, it is acceptable to make an honest mistake. Like, he said something like 3 times, right? Like, he had 3 things and it was 10. If he was unaware that there were additional ones, then that's not by his own fault that he said that. If he was directed to lie on Trump's behalf, that's important too. But it doesn't necessarily discount him as a witness. To use that argument would to throw out everything Trump has to say as well to defend himself, which probably everybody will anyway, because how can you believe anything out of Trump's mouth anymore? Plus, his own associates have had so much negative things to say about him over the years. I don't know if you all remember that first year when he was just like going through his staff like crazy. The turnover was incredible. It was incredible.
Coming. Like as noted there in the both parts there. He knows what's coming. He knows the arguments are failing. He knows his lawyers constitute a clown car, all the clowns coming out of the tiny car. And despite all of the attacks on Michael Cohen, they don't work in this case. Because yes, Michael Cohen, on a textbook level, in most cases, would have credibility issues because he's a convicted liar. But in this case, it's been corroborated. His story has been rock solid since he's been telling it, since he's done his time. He gains nothing from it. He doesn't get a reduced sentence from this. He doesn't. He's already done all of the time he's going to do for these crimes. And it's corroborated by other witnesses and physical and, audio and visual pieces of evidence. That's why Donald Trump is terrified. And so he posted this sobbing, whining video, one of the most pathetic things he's ever done.
These 4 horrible, radical left Democrat investigations of your all-time favorite president, me, is just a continuation of the most disgusting witch hunt in the history of our country. It's gone on forever with Russia, and Ukraine, and the Mueller hoax. It's an absolute disgrace what's going on. They even spied on my campaign. And remember this, with all of the work that they did on Mueller, no collusion. That's what the answer was all no collusion. Whether it's the Mar-a-Lago raid or the Unselect Committee hoax, the perfect Georgia phone call, it was absolutely perfect, or the Stormy Horseface Daniels extortion plot, they're all sick, and it's fake news. Our enemies are desperate to stop us because they know that we are the only ones who can stop them, and they know it very strongly, and they're looking at the polls where, not me, but we are up by so much. They can't even believe it. We won twice, and now we've got to win a third time. They know that we can defeat them. They know that we will defeat them. But they're not coming after me. They're coming after you. I'm just standing in their way, and I always will stand in their way. Thank you very much.
This is why I hate the way that you title stuff, because obviously it was not sobbing. Just like the other video where you said that the newscasters' makeup was like dripping down their faces and stuff. Like, can you be a little bit more honest in the way you advertise your videos? It's like, Anyway, it does look like it looks like Trump might be losing some weight. His cheeks looked a bit sunken in compared to the past. Let me see if I can find another picture to compare this. Okay, so it looks like he has some discoloration currently. He's a lot darker than usual. Maybe that's like his relaxation zone as being in the tanning bed. Because I just saw another picture posted recently where he looked very wrinkly, like much more wrinkly than normal and very pale. And then this video, he looks way over the top tan. And his cheeks look a little bit more sunken in than normal. Yeah, see, look at this. The one day ago. It doesn't look at this ABC News. He looks like it looks like he's rapidly losing weight. I think he's I don't think oh my God, look at that one. Look at this one. God, he looks like 80 in the wboy.com picture. The wboy.com picture, he looks like he's 80. Oh my God, he looks terrible. His when was that taken? My goodness. 2023 copyright. Look at that. Wow. He looks bad, you guys. Okay, let's get back to it.
It's the same old hits. The racist attacks on the prosecutors investigating him. 3 of the 4 of whom the big ones are black. The insistence that this is all BS, even though everything he lists he was guilty of doing. You know, he all of the things he did something either criminal or unethical or both. But he goes back to this BS line that they're not coming after me, they're coming after you. I'm just in their way. That is so insulting. So insulting. Because let's be clear. Any regular working or middle class person that supports Donald Trump, if they did a crime, they would have been cuffed and indicted and convicted and imprisoned by now for what they did if they did what Trump has been accused of doing, even just a fraction of it. And as I've noted before, if you're poor and if you're racialized, you're likely to go to jail. You're more likely than Trump is, even if you didn't do a crime. Even if you're just innocent, because like the system is rigged against you. Donald Trump wants to make it look like he's a champion, but all he's trying to do is weaponize his supporters to be his meat shield, to take bullets from police in a carnage just to reduce his chance at prison. But this man has taken a tumble. A man that used to be, whatever we think about him, able to mass a crowd to do violence in his name. Now he's fallen to the bottom of that stairwell, battered and bruised, and not a single person, or at least not more than 5 or 6 or 7 people, are willing to show up and protest to save him. You probably know.
Yeah, that's pretty rad, to be honest. It's pretty rad that y'all not showing up. I'm glad that you're learning.